Welcome to the Feudal Anime Podcast. I'm your host, Jack, and joining me today is Rick. How you doing today, Rick?
You know, I'm not really too mad about today. It's good weather, nice little bit of snow on the ground, and it's not even going to be that cold today. I think it might all go away.
Ooh.
What about you?
Not too bad. It's been, hasn't been too cold, you know. I live out in a desert, so it goes from, low 40s at night to the high 70s during the day right now. Today we're going to talk about Gurren Lagann, and this was your choice. And spoiler alert to everyone that's going to be listening, this is a general discussion, so we will be talking about everything in full. That's beginning, middle, and end. And we do have a tendency to bounce around a little bit, so bear with us, please. Now, Gurren Lagann, this was definitely a post-apocalyptic feeling anime, really set in the future, far in the future, and it also I feel sets groundwork for anything goes. Like it definitely sets the groundwork for anything goes. It doesn't matter what it is. If we can imagine it, if we want to do it, it's basically fair game, which I'm honestly happy with. You know, a lot of animes, they tend to set themselves with real strict guidelines and they restrict the amount of things that they can do. But this one, like just even in the beginning, they're just like all out, anything goes type thing. And
I did see that. I did notice that, and it. To your point, I agree. It does seem like it is a limitless opportunity type of universe. However, I would disagree. I think there's limits, and then you have the characters see the limits. Specifically, the two main characters at the beginning, they see the limits, and they would like to surpass the limits. Like it's less about an unlimited universe so much as seeing a set that you can reach and going beyond it, always having personal growth. It's one of the things that I think made Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball franchise so popular. There was always a limit. There was not always someone necessarily stronger immediately in the distance, but you would always have to surpass your own limitations. And that, I think, is what is so great about this anime. It transcends like the genre, in my opinion. It's that good. You could take this premise and throw any generic story at it, and you would have, in my opinion, a fairly successful anime. And I think that a lot of people have taken this plot, if you will, and made successful anime out of it. Any thoughts on that?
I would disagree a little bit in the sense that even Dragon Ball, they do have they do have their limitations. Whereas of this, while they do have some random limitations in that everyone can die or people can die, when it comes to other things, it's they don't set a limitation on anything else really in that regard, and in the fact that they even go for the strongest guy at the very end too, you know, and are able to overtake him. But we'll get to that in a minute about the ending more so. To kind of give you all a little bit of a premise, Simone and Kamina are two of the main characters in the very beginning, and you learn about them, and they're actually underground. And at the beginning, you hear Simone talking about digging, because they do live underground, and they're given stakes, or mole rat stakes, as I believe they are called, for doing a great job in digging to help expand their living area, so that way they can expand the number of people that can be there.
Yep. Yeah, and Simone is known as Simone the Digger. He's very good at what he does. He always pushes forward, which is a rather large plot point throughout the whole series.
Yes. Yes, he is. He is very known for his digging, and a couple of girls, even in the beginning, start making fun of him because of this, because he's dirty, he smells, he's been digging all day, and so they're poking fun at him. Never mind the fact that he has actually a really important job in making sure that they can expand the city, so that way they're not overpopulating their small area.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. They don't understand, like the chief doesn't understand that there is anything above the dirt ceiling, essentially. And in their opinion, that's they only can go down. They can never go up.
Right.
And that is surprisingly not questioned by hardly anyone except maybe Kamina. But it's just a given fact that the surface isn't something that's real, and you have no business looking up. Just keep digging down, keep expanding our little world so that we can continue to thrive. And they have things like what are they, earthquakes that threaten their civilization, so they always have to keep expanding and keep moving in strategic ways that allow for structures and underground environment to happen. The thing that I find quite funny is they might be digging all this stuff up, but you never quite get where they're putting the dirt.
Yeah, and you like even when they're digging, it's like the dirt just magically disappears. It's like, well, it doesn't quite work like that, you know. He's got a drill, so he's going through the dirt in like a one area, and it's where's that going?
Yeah, it's just disappearing. It's being eviscerated. It's going into the nothingness that is his life currently, you know.
Yeah. So that's why I said basically it lays the groundwork for anything goes. I mean, like you can't dig without having to displace that matter, right? That you can't unless you're there. So that's how it starts off, and then the chief of the area says, tells them it's like there's nothing up there, and Kamina says he's been to the surface with his dad, and because he was scared, he came back down because he wasn't ready for it. And now he has that driving force where he wants to go to the surface. He feels he's ready, and so he convinces Simone to just like, let's go up, let's dig up and get out of here. And so you see these giant mole rats, these beasts of mole rats. They're riding up, and then they slam into each other up at the top, and then they start building on top of each other while Simone has the drill ready to go, and then they get knocked down.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful kind of metaphor that there's always someone in power that does not want to disrupt the status quo because, in their opinion, they have the best plan, and no one's plan other than their own is viable. It does work. And you'll find going through the series that you'll see a lot of the pretense is, well, we're maintaining the status quo so as not to disrupt our life. We're comfortable where we are. We don't want to attempt the improvement for fear that it might set us back, make us regress rather than advance. And Kamina is that rebel that is like, you know what, screw this. I'm not satisfied with this. There is something more, and I need it. I want it, and I need it. And you're set up with a dynamic between Simone and Kamina that is very symbiotic in nature. Kamina has the confidence that is unwavering, and Simone uses that to continue forward because, hey, if my big bro, who has such faith in me, is so confident that we can continue on, he must know what we're doing. I just got to keep following his directive. And he's very much a you point me where to go, and I'm going to keep going in that direction till you decide otherwise. And he's like that through most of the series, and it works really well.
Right, but because he has faith in the people that are telling him where to go. But
Exactly.
also
Yeah.
at the same time, the reason why they have the courage and confidence to say where to go is because they see Simone doing what he needs to do. What he's like, hey, you know what? This is what needs to be done. This is what I'm going to do. And so he does it. And so it gives them the confidence to be able to do it, or gives Kamina the confidence to do it, because he sees Simone unwaveringly just continue to dig forward. And so it gives him the confidence to continue to drive everyone on. So it's a very symbiotic relationship between the two of them. And it's very built up like that in the very beginning. That's episode 1.
And the kind of cool part is they reinforce that later on, in like, I want to say the middle-ish of the anime. You're like, they tell a story and you hear two sides of the same story. And it's kind of funny because the hero in the story is, if it's Simone saying it, the hero is Kamina.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear Kamina's side of the story, it's Simone, because Kamina's full of bolster. He's like, I'm not going to die here. We're good. Just keep going. And that was Simone's like, hey, bro's got this. He knows what we're doing. We're just going to keep going. Kamina's like, some kind of stroke of luck. All I saw was Simone's back, and it gave me the confidence because I know he wouldn't stop so long as I believed in him and he believed in me. And a reoccurring thing is, don't believe in yourself. Believe in the me that believes in you. And that right there, that's what I mean by symbiotic.
Yes.
They don't believe in themselves because they don't have confidence in themselves, but they have confidence in each other, and they're able to feed off of that. And that builds up some kind of just power, if you will, to keep just persevering and moving forward.
Right. Also, in the very beginning, Simone comes across a strange artifact that glows for him. And we don't really know if this artifact glows for anyone else, and you come to learn a little bit later on, not too far, that it's called a core, right?
It looks like a drill.
It does.
Everything in this anime, everything in this show goes back to the power of the spiral. Mm-hmm. And a drill is a spiral in shape. It is quite literally the image of the symbol. And every time you see a spiral, you'll see it in some people's eyes. You'll see it in the tail of a pig. You'll see it in the drill they use. They'll see it in just random things. And it symbolizes power, innate power, untapped power, and unlimited potential. The ability to continue drilling forward through adversity, through everything.
Right. And it only glows, it only reacts to Simone. No one else. Yep. He's the only one that can use it, and it's kind of like it has an innate drawing to him, so it's already connected to him. And he also
enough, he finds it while digging.
Yes, because that's why he digs. You know, he digs to discover the unknown, to see if there's treasures out there, and because it's what he loves. He also finds a face, a giant robotic face, and this is what sets everything up, because the robotic face reacts to him, the core, the little drill reacts to him, and so they both react. They both start pulsating with a green glow, and he wants to show his big bro. He wants to show Kamina.
Now, at the time, Kamina, we were talking about how they tried to make their grand escape using the mole rat looking things. Well, when they were struck down by the chief, Kamina took all the responsibility, as you'll see that his very leader-esque tendencies are prone to do. He takes all the responsibility. He takes all of the punishment, because that's what he does. That's his role in life, to be the leader. And he is very strong in his belief that, you know what? I'm the leader. The buck stops with me. My guys are doing what I'm saying. So, of course, the fault is only mine. They're just following me. And he's the only one punished. He actually disowns a few guys because they turned tail. And when Simone said, no, I'm up there too, he got respect and love out of Kamina. And it
Right.
was a small moment that is, you can harken back to it throughout the anime. You can see that just it develops more and more in different ways. But that one little thing solidifies their bond. Anyway, he's thrown in jail, or their jail, and you come to find out he could escape whenever he wants. It's such a silly type of punishment. It's like, go stand in that corner, but it's it's the symbolism of that punishment more so than the punishment itself.
Well, he's actually in their little makeshift jail area, and he does have cuffs. And Simone drills right under him and breaks the cuffs for him and says, "Hey, come with me. I want to show you this thing that's really cool." And roughly around that same time,
I need to interject because Simone didn't break the cuffs. He just tore them apart with his hands. He's just like, well, all right, I guess I can follow you. Just make sure the old man doesn't find out, because we'll be in trouble for me walking out of here. And then he just separates his hands and the ropes fall away. So he was plenty strong enough to get out of it on his own.
You're right. And it is ropes, but which brings to question, where did they get the material from for the rope?
Where do they get the material for a lot of the stuff they have?
Like the metal, I can get. The mole rats, I can get. They shave them before they kill them or after they kill them, and that's how they get their clothes. How did they get the plastic?
How do they get the utensils? How do they get a lot of stuff?
Yeah.
I agree with you. It doesn't make any sense, but not a lot about this anime does make sense. You're not supposed to question stuff like that.
I question everything about that when
fine.
You're forced to live underground.
Who knows? Maybe they didn't realize it was plastic. It was just too dark. And they're like, you know what? I'm just happy that I'm not starving right now and I don't have to eat more dirt. But
right.
Yeah, that's right. Just me.
Okay. I'll let it slide then. Also in the first episode, you're introduced to the third main character, Yoko. Yoko is very much there for your fan service and enjoyment. There is no denying that. Like, she is there scantily clad in a bikini top and some shorty short shorts, some Daisy Dukes.
Yeah, and she has a rockin' body. Now that, I will say, is one of the high points of this whole anime. Not necessarily her body, but the graphics. You've got 3 style of female in this drawing styles, whereas you've got like 20, 30 different kinds of dudes, from super fat to really old to just nonsensical. But you really only have the attractive woman, the attractive lolly, and then you have kids. That's literally it.
They have a couple other ones in there, but they tend to change into these creatures, beastmen, a little bit later on. Like from the what's it called? From the episode where they go to
they go to say, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I don't necessarily think they changed into beastmen so much as they were a cover for beastmen. Like the dudes were so focused on the girls that they overlooked, hey, there's a hairy chick over here.
Yeah.
Wearing covering everything.
Yeah. Fair enough. So you're in the beginning, a lot goes on right in the very first episode. You're introduced to all 3 characters. You're given that all 3 of them have a very close relationship, develop a very close relationship. At least Simone and Kamina develop a very close relationship, and you have that foundation built on just in the very first episode. You can also tell immediately that Yoko immediately starts thinking of Simone as a younger brother. And that's about it. That's all she really sees him as, is more like a younger brother type of character.
Yeah, and you definitely see the reverse is not true. He kind of sees her as, wow, she's definitely a new breed, so to speak. She doesn't think I'm dirty. She doesn't think I'm disgusting. She relies on me. Right. So he kind of grows attached to her in a minor amount. And then you come to see that Kamina is the one that she's attracted to.
Oh, yeah, because he's very confident. He's very leader-esque. He doesn't show any fear. He's a go-getter. He goes out. He does what he needs to do. In general, I mean, like, she finds those qualities very attractive.
Now, we're jumping ahead a little bit, going back to their first encounter. You're introduced to Yoko when earthquake happens and everyone's going crazy, and then the sky starts falling.
Mm-hmm.
Quite literally. The surface that everyone was so sure didn't exist was opened up to them because this giant face, they call it, jumps down and starts wreaking havoc. And that's when Yoko jumps in with this badass gun and starts shooting this thing that you later find out is something they refer to as a mecha.
Gunman.
A mecha gunman. Sorry.
No, not even mecha gunman. They just refer to it as gunman.
Oh, my bad. I will concede that. That sounds appropriate. But the things are just these giant robots that are killing people, and they don't know why. They don't know what's going on. And then Simone was like, hey, there's this face I want you guys to see. And this face thing turns out to be a very small version of these gunmen. And this small little face, I forget what they name it. They name it Gurren?
I think they named it. No, they named it Lagann.
Lagann?
Yeah.
And then, okay, so they named it Lagann. I'm not quite sure what that represents or why. But again, Big Bro, who's Kamina, and henceforth Big Bro should be synonymous with Kamina, because they don't always say his name. They always refer to him, Big Bro said this, Big Bro said this, Big Bro wouldn't do this, that kind of thing.
Right. Simone says Big Bro. Yoko always refers to him as Kamina along with everyone else. So the only person that actually ever calls him Big Bro consistently is Simone. Everyone else refers to him as Kamina.
You have a point. I just see the anime through Simone's eyes, which is why I was just thinking that, I guess. But either way, in the first episode, you find out that this little Lagann is able to fight with the best of them. He's extremely sturdy. He's extremely just everything you'd want. And he's powered by Simone. And Simone seems to be the only one that seems to be able to use him. And then episode 2, 3, 4, 5, he gets better and better. He maintains the fact that he is, to be perfectly honest, just an extremely whiny brat that is almost forced to do anything.
Yes.
By his big bro.
I would agree. Good? Yeah, no, I agree completely. But then again, he is a kid. Let's talk about like what goes on in these episodes too. You know, I mean, like why again? I reiterate that, you know, it sets groundwork for anything goes, because, you know, when they finally come across another one of the supporting characters, Feudal, which is a beastman, you know, they do something outrageous. Like during the second battle, they do something completely outrageous because they fight him twice. But
and then they take over.
Well, just in the second episode, they, like, no one ever thought to hijack a gunman. And so Kamina just like, he's like, I'm gonna go take that, and he kicks in, forces it open, and then gets in there, kicks the guy out, and he takes over the gunman. He actually takes it over. It's like, and everyone's like, I never thought to do that. Weird.
Well, see, there's also growth that happens here too, because you find out that Kamina's father, who shoved him back in the ground and said, hey, you're not ready. You're still too scared. Come get me when you're ready. I'll be waiting. You come to find out that the dad didn't make it too far. And the dad's been dead for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it really affects him and messes with his mind. And it's exactly what he needed, because it pushes him through his own evolutionary state. Whereas Simone, for some reason, maybe due to his perseverance, mainly due to, I don't know, something unique about him specifically, he was able to work the small gunman almost instantly.
Right.
And Big Bro was not able to. Like, he'd hop in and nothing worked. And then he was pushed to a mental breaking point where he surpassed his own limits.
Well, the reason why he was pushed past the mental point isn't because he saw his dad. It's because he saw a skull after he hit the screen, and that resonated with him. He didn't even know that it was his dad until after he went to go pick it up to bury it. And that point, that's when he realized that it was his dad. And it affected him kind of, but not so much.
Well, in that case, let me rephrase. The skull, seeing his eventual inevitability, because everyone dies, his eventual he wanted to reject that and forge a new path. He was not about to die here. And that strain forced him to open up a type of power, fighting spirit, he calls it, never giving up, never surrendering, always pushing forward, something that Simone always did, mainly because of the faux confidence of somebody else.
Yeah.
But it was there nonetheless. And when he found his own reason, the gunman started to work with him. And then you find out that tiny gunman that Simone does, very much like his own personality, is able to merge and make something better by connecting and fusing with something else.
Yeah.
Because by himself, originally, he was not that good. But when he merges with Big Bro, he becomes this ultimate badass that you just can't stop.
Well, they can still control it independently. And this goes, again, he says, let's combine. He just picks up Simone in the mecha and just shoves the head right on top of his own mech, on his own gunman, and adjusted and said that was combining. All right. So there was like literally no plan on how to do this, and everyone got really excited about it. They're like, yes, combine, that's great. And he just shoves it right in his head. He just,
to
like,
be fair, we never accused him of being a genius. Want to point that out right now.
Well, no one would ever accuse him of that. It was just hysterical, though.
It was pure instinct, which is what he relies on the most. He was like, I'm going to do it. We're going to do it. It's going to happen. Boom.
Well, not only that, they make up moves all the way through. It's like, how you come? Where are these moves coming from? He's like, this is what we're doing. Giant giga drill, and he just go. And it's like, all right. It's like, yell out the moves that you're gonna do. That makes sense, and then it just poof comes to reality.
Manifest power. Go.
Yeah, exactly. So it definitely sets the groundwork for basically anything goes. I mean, like, if you want to do it, set your mind to it, you can make it happen, type of thing. All right. There is no real restriction in that sense. As we progress through the anime, right, we come across a different settlement that's underground, and they come across it by accident. But it shows a real contrast in between where Simone's from and from where they are now. And they talk about where Yoko's from. So they actually were forced to go up to the top because there was a gas that started leaking in there. So they had a choice: either go to the surface, go up,
or die.
They chose to go up to the surface, which ironically is also kind of like a death sentence unless you fight constantly.
Yeah.
And then also what's interesting is no one really can read.
Yeah, everyone is functionally illiterate to this point in the anime. It's kind of crazy. As you progress through the anime, you start to see evolutionary traits. Mm-hmm. The learning capabilities of people skyrocket as soon as they come in contact with Simone. Like he's like the key to unlock everyone. And it's kind of funny because he doesn't himself evolve until much later. He doesn't stand on his own 2 feet until later.
Yeah, I think it's like episode 10. That's when he really starts standing on his own 2 feet. Really.
Yeah. Now the settlement you're referring to is the one where the next semi-main character comes into play, named Rossiu, who's a child. And in this settlement, you've got a very strict, this is how many people we can support on extremely meager provisions. We can, once we hit this number, like anymore, we can't afford to feed everybody. People will start dying, disease will spread. It's just not good. And the main priest, the main head of the guy, if you will, he understands this, and he creates a very cold-hearted and very by the book, by the numbers. This is how we can survive.
Yes.
The majority will survive and the minority will suffer. And unfortunately, this is what life has been dealt to us. This is the way things have gone. This is what we need in order to make sure that we don't essentially kill ourselves off. And so he uses a very strict form of population control. Once he creates this religion type of thing that everyone just follows suit. He's the smartest one. He's the most able. He appears to be the oldest. And he has this idea, hey, once we hit 50 or once we hit a certain number, I think it was 50.
Yeah.
If we pass 50 and enter into 51, we're not going to make it as a people. So we're going to send people to the surface, to the promised land, on a journey towards the holiest of holy lands, where you can go and prosper and be happy and all this stuff. He knew it was a death sentence. He knew he was sending people up with nothing. And he knew, but he still did it because the survival of the majority is worth the sacrifice of the minority.
Yep. Also, at this exact same time, you're introduced to Dari and Gimme, which were the next two people, the next two kids that were set to be sent to the surface.
Correct. Now, they were specific. The way that this thing was done is you all go in a group and you all get to pick sticks, and the two with the red sticks, or however many, let's say you were only at 51, well, only one person with a red stick would have to go to the surface. Well, if there are 52, then two people have to go to the surface. So they all pick red sticks, and it was a rigged lottery. The two children had lost their parents to some kind of disease or accident. So they were homeless, and the community was taking care of them. So the leader, in his wisdom, if you'll call it that, decided that those two will be missed the least. And if they send them to the surface, status quo shall remain, and no one will grieve for them. And Rossiu found out that this is the truth. He found out that this is a problem. And he decided that he was going to join them. And his reasoning for it is he doesn't want these kids to go off alone. And the secret that the priest, the leader, is sending them off to die will be kept. And he'll also be freeing up a mouth. So the next person to be born doesn't mean somebody will be sacrificed. It's all around, it seems to be the best option for that moment.
Right.
And Rossiu grows with everyone moving forward.
Right, but he also maintains and holds on to those core beliefs of what his father did too. At a fundamental level. His father also, or the priest, also sends him with the book, and he tells him, he's like, I can't read this. And he looks at his son and he laughs and he goes, I can't read it either. And so the way that thing went up, he says, hey, here's our most holy book. You can take this on your journeys. It'll be a source of comfort for you. And the guy goes, well, Father, I can't read. And the father says, you know what's kind of funny? Neither can I. Yeah. And that's how you find out that it's 100% BS, but it's BS that the leader of this group finds necessary. It is a necessary evil, and it's unfortunate. And Rossiu understands on a fundamental level, like you said, and he takes it forward with him. He believes that the majority is most important. And you'll see tidbits here and there as he's still a child when he says things and he does things that everyone else finds extremely contradictory. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to risk our nation for that one person of ours. We're going to go get him. And he goes, are you sure? And this is just a scenario. This is just one of the few that they go on. He goes, are you sure we can do that? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And they go and they succeed. But they don't necessarily teach Rossiu that this is what you're supposed to do. So, and that becomes a huge factor later on. Huge.
Yeah, it does. It does become a very big factor, and it also brings to question like how many total settlements are there underground, like in all.
I don't personally know. Do you have any like even number they threw out? Because I know
They
there was
threw
more than
out.
15.
Yeah, no, they threw out towards the end. We're talking about like late teens, early 20s in the episodes. They throw out a total number of 36 large settlements, is what they find out. But how many there actually are is another question entirely, because we don't know if that's including all the tinier ones that were like where he came from. Where you had like a maximum of 50 people, and that could be sustained. So we don't know.
And at this point, while you have your main character, you have your main protagonists, you also, and we haven't really discussed this part too much, you're introduced to your main villains. And the beastmen, so to speak, appear to be wild and rampant at the beginning. And they only attack in the morning and they don't attack at night for some weird reason. And then in the episode where they combine, the Simone and his big bro combine, they're facing a different breed, if you will. If you were to classify them as levels, you have your doing all the regular attacking, and now the captain comes through and he's like, yo, I'm Mr. Big Dick on campus, what you got? And you find out that not only is this going to be a main character, a reoccurring main character, main bad guy, he's also got a very strict sense of what's right and what's wrong, to almost as fervent and as stringent as Rossiu does. Because there are times in the anime where he could kill them outright, but he's like, you know what? That would bring me no honor.
Yeah.
He refers to them as naked monkeys. And there's a point when he actually comes up on them and they're legitimately naked.
Yeah.
There's no honor in killing a naked monkey who's actually naked. Go get ready before we fight. I'm going to show you how much better I am than you because I am superior in every way. So you do your preparations and then come to me. And he is soundly defeated almost every time. And more to the point, how much he actually brings to the table or affects the series. The reason that Gurren, which is Big Bro's mecha, and Lagann, which is Simone's mecha, or gunman, I apologize, combine is because they see this big bad villain has two faces. And Big Bro's like, hey, that's not fair. We need two faces too. Let's combine. And then that's when he makes the two faces. And that's when they steal the helmet from the big bad beastman, the captain, if you will.
Right.
And that becomes a reoccurring, hey, I want my helmet back. You took something from me. I want it back. You're mine.
But also you have to understand that there's more characters going on here than just that, because the main protagonist, the main villain out of all this, at least for the first half, is a character referred to as the Spiral King. And the same character you're talking about, Feudal, has an audience with the king, and he asks like, why are these humans even here? Why are these creatures even around? He also asks about the beastmen as well at the same time. And again, this takes place around halfway through the anime, and the Spiral King actually tells Feudal why they have to go to sleep every night, and you find this out in what the reason is because if they don't go to sleep every night, their cells, their bodies will literally break down. Like they will not be able to continue
forward. They were created as imperfect beings on purpose.
Right.
And you find out later it's because of the double helix and it's their DNA essentially.
Right.
But do you remember at what point in the anime that we're actually introduced to a bad guy named the Spiral King?
I do not.
So I actually do remember, and I'm sorry I was wrong on the naming. You had your grunts and then your your semi sort of big boss who was, I guess, an assassin. What was his name again? I forget.
Viral.
Viral. Yeah, I don't know why I can't remember that one. Anyway, Viral's boss was a captain. So you hear about him, and the story goes, hey, we got to go to this captain and stop him from throwing all these gunmen at us so that we can stay safe. And then in that big fight, you see this gigantic gunman, and you just go, oh. To give you an idea how big this gunman is, a person hops in a gunman, and he stands roughly like 40-ish feet tall, right? 40, 50, something like that. That's the average height, going off of the fact that you're assuming each person's roughly like 5'10", 6, something like that, 5'10", 6 foot.
Right.
That's the average. Okay. So you got these gigantic metal gunmen. Well, this big base, this mobile base that we're talking about, is throwing them like baseballs. The hand of this thing is able to encompass the 40 or 50 foot gunman in the hand like a baseball and chucking them in a general direction.
Yeah.
To keep everybody silenced. And you find out later that there's even bigger people behind them. That this is not an isolated event. Now, it just occurs to me there are originally, if you do the math, there's 4 generals. So I apologize. They're not fighting a captain. It's a general they're fighting in this big ship. And the general is saying, hey, you're not going to take my gunman because the Spiral King himself has gifted me with this. And that was the first moment you even hear about the Spiral King. And that's the first inkling of, we're going to need to fight something way bigger, way badder than this guy.
Yes.
And this was a very memorable fight, in my opinion, and I think in anybody, because this is the first major death of the series. The one that just makes you go, there's no way. No. I remember watching it and just being hurt. That doesn't typically happen from cartoons, from anime.
Well, unless you develop a symbiotic relationship with that anime and it speaks to you on a fundamental level. But yeah, no, Kamina dies in this episode. It's episode 8. That he dies. He dies 1/3 of the way through the series, and it affects everyone greatly too. It really does. It affects everyone greatly. To even Simon spends an entire episode desolate. Just he lost the will to live in general.
And he starts throwing himself in conflicts that he shouldn't.
Exactly.
And he's very much about, well, bro would do this, and bro took it all on himself, and bro did this so no one could die, so I need to take his place. And he becomes a miniature version of what he thought his bro was. And it's actually a good and a bad thing. It makes him extremely reckless. It makes him extremely unreliable. And it makes everyone around him turn a cold shoulder to him, because even though he's hurting the most, they need him to be stronger. They need him to be better. But they can't coddle him because it'll take his growth too long. And in one of these conflicts, he's thrown to a rather far place where he's just lost, and then his gunman stops working.
Yeah, the energy starts feeding back, and it wigs out on its own, and it runs away, and it runs into this field. And what ends up happening when he runs into this field, because the gunman that he was fighting chased after him, he comes across a container
that was just recently thrown. He actually watches it physically be thrown overboard.
Yes.
Not overboard, but in this canyon.
Yes. And he walks over to it and opens it up with the core, because it fits perfectly in there. He notices that. He goes over to the login, grabs it, walks over to there, and opens it. And a girl pops out. And she looks mostly human, too, except for the randomly colored hair and the cross in the eyes. She looks human. And she's puzzled by what she sees. She's like, oh, you look almost like me. What are you? Oh, I'm human. Like, what's your name? And this is where you're introduced to another main character to replace Kamina, so to speak, in so many words, It definitely gives Simon the balance that he needed. and this character's name is Nia, and she sees Simon, and she can tell that he's very distraught and everything like that. And he
She
gets
has
in
no
the
clue why.
right. She doesn't know why, but the gunman appears, and he's like, "I need to fight this gunman. I need to do this. You run away. You save yourself." She's like, "Why don't we just both run away? Let's just both get out of here." And he's like, "No, I have to do this." He's like, "It looks like you want to die. Do you want to die? Because I don't think you want to die. I think you should just run with me." And so after some convincing, after Lagann no longer wants to work, he runs away with her, only to have a rocket launched at him that then everyone else goes and saves. But yeah, no, it finally starts giving him some balance. It finally gives him the driving force that he needs to live. He still goes through like another episode or two of kind of figuring out what's going on and coping with the loss, and everyone else is also trying to figure out how to cope with the loss. But they also find out that Nia is or was the daughter of the Spiral King.
No, she still is. You don't stop being, but she's disregarded. She's no longer in his presence, and he got bored of her.
Right.
Apparently, the Spiral King has a hobby of just making more of him, making more daughters and sons, and just discarding them when he gets bored.
Well,
And the moment that she got boring for him was when she goes, "Well, why was I born?"
yeah, the second that she became sentient, as one of the other generals say, he's like, the king has no need for a doll that can think for itself.
Yeah, and you come to find out that it's not necessarily the fact that she can think on her own. It's the fact that the sentience, the "why am I here," is very dangerous.
Yes.
For the king and for humanity, if you will.
Right.
But not a lot really happens. You have a few episodes of fan service. You've got
you got some battles that go on. Nothing really major. They fight another couple of the generals. You do run across another city, but they never actually go into the city. The general ends up holding them hostage, and they rebel, so to speak, or they betray Simon and everyone else, thinking that was the only option that they actually had. And then,
well, kind of.
I mean,
it was one of those things where, and I don't mean to interrupt, but it was one of those things where not every human is a friend, and they were brought up with these beastmen are our boss. These beastmen care for us. These beastmen do everything for us. And you have one of the generals who was like, what, 400 or 500 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
Going on and saying, we're just going to use them and then discard them when we're done. And that was their lot in life. That's what they believed. It was a extreme case of Stockholm syndrome in mass, but they were able to lure stupidly Team Gurren, or Team Gurren at that time, into this trap. And everyone except the main leader, who was he again? I forget what his name was.
Kitan,
that's right. Kitan was like, "Hey, we got to go save these beautiful girls." And everyone else was like, it's really strange that it feels a lot like a trap, because why would they be able to send this message out? The beastmen are going to see it too. And Kitan was like, "Nope, big bro would have done it. We got to go do it now."
Yep.
And so they go and they get into a trap, and you find out that the princess is wanted essentially by this main general. And that's when it triggers Simone back to action. Like, "Hey, I love this person. I need to save her. She's the only one that's been sticking by me." Actually, and that's when
it gets triggered more so, not at that point, but at an earlier point with the Scorpion General, the female Scorpion General, when she's about to kill Nia. That's when he really starts coming back. That's when it really clicks for him.
Yes, at that point. You are correct. I apologize. I did skip over that, but I was more referring to the point when Lagann starts to react to him again and starts coming to him when they're all in prison and in jail. That's when the second story of the digger comes out,
Yes.
where everyone was like, we got to get out, we got to stop digging, and everyone decides to stop because they see it as being futile, and Simone doesn't. He never stops. He's digging with his little drill, the little key that he has. He's digging with that, trying to get out because he's been set with a task. It's time to go. He has to get out. And that's when everyone starts to believe in him again. And that's when he starts to believe in himself again. That's when he feels back to where he was.
Yeah, and that's also when the other story was revealed, because he recalls it. And Yoko also recalls Kamina talking about seeing Simon dig, and that's when she finally believes in him too. She's like, I finally understand why. She just sees his back. He's sitting there, he's digging, and that's all he's doing. He's just doing what he needs to do to move on. It's like, let's go.
And that's when she recalls the story that Kamina was like, I felt hopeless, but I saw his back and I saw him continue moving, and I didn't want to betray the trust that he put in me. So I told him to keep going, and I told him to push on. And that's when you are right. That's when you saw the second story where everything comes together. They didn't believe in themselves. They believed in the person that the other person saw. And that's why it became believe in the person that believes in you. So believe in me, believing in you. You don't have to believe in yourself, but trust that I know you can do it. If you trust me, you'll do it because I trust that you can do it, that kind of thing. And it was a very confusing dynamic, and it kind of got silly after a little bit, but it started to work. And the change of events that happened was at the very end, right before he died, his last words were, don't believe in the me that believes in you. Believe in the you that believes in you. And, I was thinking that as confusing as it was, it honestly, I think it deserves a lot longer than what we've been given it, as far as timeline goes. What do you think?
I would have to agree. I definitely would have to agree. There's just so much that goes on in this episode. There's a lot of things that we're passing over, glazing over, not even touching on, that I feel like we're not going to be able to get it done in this one episode. So it looks like we may have to break it up.
I definitely agree, because what we got for the next one, if that's what we're doing, I think we are. You have the whole political spectrum that could easily be another 45 minutes, hour.
Yeah.
So let's leave it for a little anticipation for that.
Yeah. Next week, we're going to be going over the final fight. We're going to be going over what happens in the future, as well as the ending. Hopefully, if things don't get drug on too long, but with everything that happens here, that is a possibility. So yeah, I think that's all the time that we have for today. Please join us next week. You can reach us at feudalanimepodcast@gmail.com. Please reach out to us, questions, comments, concerns, and feedback, of course, is always welcome. And I hope you have a nice day.
Later, man.